Yeah, so I came out of vet school in '92 and started Don Wainscott Town and Country Animal Hospital. And we hired Linda 3 months after I started and didn't tell anybody at the hospital because there was chaos in Town and Country. Great hospital, great doctors, and Don Wainscott was the best mentor I could have ever asked for. Pulled her in off the street, threw her into the chaos house, Town and Country. I told Linda, hey, if they ask you who hired you, just keep giving them a different name. And then I left for 6 weeks and abandoned her there as a new employee, and 32 years later, we're still working with her. So, we talked about pet ownership. One of the things that makes pet ownership unique, and this is going to get a little hallmarky at the beginning here. I'll try to bring it back and make it more like something he would say. The pets provide us two versions of unconditional love. We kind of joke around about it, but it's semi-serious. In dogs, you get true unconditional love. They're going to do everything they want for you no matter what. And with cats, you're going to give them unconditional love. They're going to do everything you need to for that cat, or they're going to get you that or else. The funny thing is that human nature yearns for unconditional love, but humans really can't give it to each other. And we don't need to go into examples of that. It's just very difficult to achieve true unconditional love in a human-to-human relationship. I would say the exception to that is if you've had children, there's that window of time where children go from a milk-sucking parasite to actually thinking on their own. But in that window of time, that is unconditional love. Your child knows nothing but you, and you know nothing but that child. But of course, they mature, and that changes into other things are going on. The critical element about pets, the reason they are so valuable to us, is the value that they bring through this dedication. There was this great ad in the UK. Of course, they can't show it here. In this advertisement in the UK is this classic bowler hat wearing, the derby wearing British businessman. He's got his cane. He's decked out in all sorts of Harrods of London clothing, and he gets up to his flat, and there's this little terrier just jumping. You can see this terrier jumping in the window. Can't wait for him to get home, right? Can't wait. So he opens the door and he goes up to his apartment. Dog's with him the whole time, just jumping. So happy to see him. He disrobes into his skivvies, and he starts putting on. And he's not by any means an idea of fitness at the gym. He starts putting on women's lingerie. And the dog's just jumping and jumping. He starts putting on just caking his face with makeup and gets his hair done. And then he walks out of his apartment into the night to do whatever weirdness that he has planned for the night. And the dog's just jumping as he leaves in the window. And the end of the ad is, that's the great thing about dogs. They just don't care. And it really serves this great message about it's the truth. So one situation that we do run into in our clinic fairly frequently, is over time, as our clients age, we see them get to a point in their age, keeping in mind most dogs are going to give you 12 years on average of life. Most cats are probably more like 13 to 15. So certainly, we have this age of clientele where they're mentally functional, they're physically functional, their lives are functional, but in their heads, when they say goodbye to their pet, they're thinking to themselves, I can't get another pet because if I get something young that's puppy, kitten that I can start with scratch, I've got to know that I can take care of this thing for 12 or 15 years, and maybe on average, I'm not going to be here in 12 to 15 years, so I'm not going to get that pet. The problem with that thought process is that certain seniors need that companionship more than almost any other demographic that we have. That college kid who thinks it's super cool to go buy a French bulldog for $1,000 and they can't afford their cornflakes, they can't afford their ramen noodles, but they're going to go get a French bulldog, which is probably going to have several health issues, and won't be able to see us. That person will be okay if they don't have a French bulldog. They'll probably get by. But a lot of members of our senior population, they have said goodbye to their spouses, or their families live far away, or their friends are getting fewer and fewer. And this is a core time. This is a really important time for people in that demographic to find the companionship that pets bring, cats or dogs. We do joke about how that's a different dynamic. But truly, that is a really important window of time for people to have that companionship. Now, what happens if you bring an animal in and it turns out that there's going to be a future where that animal does outlive you? Our argument, our process is don't let that keep a person from getting a pet. Work things out with a family. In our clinic, we've done this a couple times. We've gone to that person and said, look, they're like, I don't know if my family would take this. I don't want this animal ending up in a rescue. Our rescues in the area are good, but there's still a little bit of a chaos to putting that animal into the rescue system and not really having any say. And if you spent 6 years with an animal and something happens to you, you may not remain invested in that animal because you're doing other things. But that's where we set up, where we take over the ownership of the pet. We will take that pet in, and we will care for it, and we'll place it in a home. And that way, they have somebody they know and they trust that we will hold on to that animal. We've had to do this for different reasons. One of the unique situations in our field is that we voluntarily end the lives of our patients. That's starting to take a little bit more hold in human medicine, getting there. But in our field, it's something that's a daily occurrence. Daily, we are ending pets' lives. We're taking pets and by choice ending their lives. Where that can become stressful in our profession is if you're in a position to have to end a patient's life and they don't need to be euthanized. And we just don't do that at our clinic. We just said that will not happen at Prairie Oak Vets. Somebody comes in and their dog, these are real life examples. Guy comes in, his big white dog got hit by a bus, leg was destroyed, dog's a year and a half, totally got its life in front of it. And he brought it in and put it to sleep. And we just said, you can relinquish that dog to us. You're never going to see this dog again. You're never going to know about this dog again. Or you can go to a different clinic and have to do this. But we're not doing it. And they gave us the dog. And then we take care of the leg, got this dog, and now we'll find a new home. It's the same thing with people when we have been in positions where we weren't able to get to a client. And keep in mind, some deaths are not timely. I don't think any of us want to think any death is timely, but certainly some are less timely than others, where we have an animal that needs care because the owner's gone. And that's a similar situation. We are not going to euthanize that animal just because it's homeless now. Unless there's a reason, unless there's something, if the animal is vicious or only like that owner. But in this situation, it's very much want to encourage that you folks or people you know, as you get into senior years, that companionship is not replaceable. There's nothing that matches it. And so in our time, when we can bring these animals in, they're providing that necessary companionship and comfort that is so critical at that time. We know there's study after study where if you're not remaining intellectually engaged as you get older, if you're not remaining socially engaged, and some of these things are harder and harder to do, not because you're not choosing to be socially engaged or intellectually engaged, because it's harder and harder to do, because families gone, because spouses have moved on, because friends are moving on. And these guys can come in and provide fill a huge gap, and it's real. And the idea there is you can work with rescues. We have rescues who want to put 8-year-old animals in homes, and they will pay for everything as long as you're sort of permanently fostering that dog. Permanently fostering is a term for you're getting a pet while you can take care of it. And that is an animal that is going to go back to that rescue if something happens. In our case, if we've taken care of you for 10 years, and we've taken care of your dog for 10 years, and something happens to you, and or you lose that animal, and you want another animal, but you're like, man, what do I do here? We're going to have you sign documents that give us that animal, and we'll take it from you. And that animal is going to live out its life, and it's going to have a great life. But always know, don't ever say, I can't have a pet in my household because I'm such and such of an age. That's one of the most important times that companionship can come in and serve the purpose that we all kind of take for granted. But it's a great purpose, and it's one we really need to embrace and consider as you get older, if you find yourselves in need of that companionship. Does anyone have any questions at all? Yes, sir.
I resist being caught. And look, maybe because I don't have a dog, because my studio is all, we got to do stuff. other things is, not knowing where you get a kennel for like going on weekends or going off and traveling. Are they available around here? I have never looked into it.
There's a lot of places that do boarding. There are. Yeah, there's really decent places for boarding. And some of that is if you're knowing that you have a travel schedule, especially with dogs, because even cats do fine. Honestly, they really do. Plus minus if I have an owner, I'm a cat. I don't know. But the getting that dog even used to that, getting that dog adjusted to that, and a lot of these dogs, if they're coming out of rescues and they have a few years underneath, a 4-year dog that's been in a rescue has spent its time in the kennel. So putting it back in the kennel is usually not a big deal. Or if you start with a puppy or a younger dog, getting them used to that absence early on, and then it becomes sort of natural for them. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to this place. It's like a weekend away with all these other dogs. They do a lot of socialization at these places. They're pretty good options for that. And if you're not flying, if you're driving where you go, most dogs are great for traveling that way. I've done it for years and years, because I was a little bit resistant to flying. That's changed now because my daughter went to Australia and I had to go see her. So one way to break your fear of flying is fly to Australia. It works. It works, and also get someplace where they serve free wine. It really helps. Yes, sir.
This may be a deficiency in your formative years, but what kind of pets did Lincoln have, and what did he have on the 8th Circuit that occupied him besides his horse?
I think it was just his horse.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he never taught you that?
Look what happened to Lincoln.
He never taught you that?
No, he didn't.
Fido was the name of his dog, by the
Get
way.
this guy going on Lincoln.
You know what he said? He said, "Who's Lincoln?"
Any other questions at all? About veterinary medicine in general, yes.
This is the opposite of the situation you just described. Have you had owners of pets who you recommended that the pet be euthanized and the owner said, no, I don't want that? And how do you handle that when you encounter that?
That's a great question, and it's hard because we are the advocate for the animal. So we're the advocate. If these people bring an animal in and say, you know what, it's down and it doesn't need to be down, I gotta say that's not happening. It's not happening here. You have somebody else do it, it's not happening here. Then we have people that we think they're fine. And you're looking at these animals like, no. And we just gotta hammer.
Can't stand
Exactly.
that animal.
Well, and we're sometimes in a position where that animal, even when it's quote unquote just a pet, everything it represents in the years of that relationship, sometimes it was the spouse's pet, it's the only thing somebody has left to remind them of their spouse or one of their children or something like that. So we're not just taking the pet away, we're kind of ripping all of these memories away too. But we have to stand in for and sit there, and those are sometimes probably our longest euthanasia processes because we're in there for a very long time, taking them through it, explaining to them. But a lot of it's also reminding them that their fears are natural and they're not going to go away. We have people who are like, it just doesn't feel right, and we're like, don't wait for that because it's never going to feel right. It's not supposed to feel right. It's a horrible decision, but it's one that's necessary. It's actually beautiful that we have it as an option. But we tell them that they're supposed to feel bad about it. We remind them, and this is true, people can't feel. Especially if you've been through a long illness with one of these animals, no one really puts in their mind how much time they spent stressing about the illness and wondering. And if you wake up every day wondering if your animal's going to put to sleep that day, it's time. That's the end of the human companion animal bond that we're spending so much time with that. So we take people through their feelings and remind them those are natural feelings. That doesn't make this decision wrong. No, actually, performing euthanasia is one of the most important jobs we do at our clinic. And it's my dad used to always joke around with me. He's like, I lose a case and I run into somebody on the street, and I'm like, oh yeah, this guy lost a case for me. But then I run into some client, you took their pet's life away. He's the best thing that ever happened to us. What is that? You took their pet away from them. But it is a very sensitive issue, and it is one of the most important duties that we do. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was wondering, my daughter trained seeing eye dogs for the blind, if they're diagnosed blind options. Well, she said that some breeds are so tied spirit-wise that they had to stop using golden retrievers for seeing eye dogs and switch because they were too tied to the owner.
it's a great example because we always talk about golden retrievers probably are the dog of dogs. They have too many health issues. You may say goodbye to one at 6 or 7 or 8 that should have lasted 12, 13, 14. But good Lord, those dogs are consistently amazing pets. And I can see that because we've been through a couple of those where we're a mess. We're like, oh God, this one's coming in today. But some of these losses get us too. You know, we've been neck deep with these animals and their health care and their ties, and then we're the one. And you know, it's funny. It's not funny. People are always like, yeah, I can take my dog and put it to sleep. No, we did. We're the ones who were doing it. And so we're going to take it very seriously because you're giving us permission, but we're actually the ones who are doing it. And that makes it important to get it right when you make that decision so we can walk away and not lay in bed at night. There's a lot of stress in the veterinary profession, enough so that they have their own organization, not one more vet, because there is a pretty serious self-harm issue in our profession. I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world, but there are places where these veterinarians can get into ruts. And certainly one of those ruts, the emotion that can carve into these people is finding themselves euthanizing animals that really don't need to be euthanized. Yes, sir.
Farmer's dog says if I really love my dog and want it to live a year and a half longer, I should buy their food.
What's that?
Farmer's dog, the commercial says if I really love my
The
dog.
special
Oh.
diets.
Live a year and a half longer.
Domestic dogs have minimal, they're omnivores and their nutrition requirements are easy and have been way oversold and overthought and over advertised and over, a great example, the grain-free diet craze. Grain-free diets. These bags brag about them, grain-free, and the AVMA documented, the American Veterinary Association documented over 700 cases of young dogs getting dilated cardiomyopathy, which is a fancy word for a heart wall getting flabby. We see it genetically in Dobermans, Rottweilers, and Boxers, and when they get older, that flabby heart begins to fail. We don't see it in 7-year-old, 5-year-old golden retrievers until they start eating grain-free foods, because the grain-free diets have something that blocks the amino acid that's necessary for normal heart wall health, something in the lentils or the chickpeas. So everything's normal. They couldn't find anything. The amino acid levels are normal, everything's normal, and they realized that something in grain-free diets was blocking the amino acid function and causing dilated heart failures in young dogs. All because of an ingredient that is less than 5% of all food allergies are the grain. 95% plus food allergies are the protein in the food. So the grains aren't the problem, and we created this huge bouquet, this boutique diet craze over grain-free. So anyone who tells you your dog's going to live longer with a diet switch, that's just not. And then the frozen food craze is a similar thing. Frozen foods have all the Salmonella, Campylobacter, Listeriosis. They have all the same health hazards. If you went to Hy-Vee and grabbed a chicken leg off the counter and just started eating it while you're shopping, you're not going to do that because you're going to probably lose 20 pounds out of your rear end over the next 2 weeks. But dogs have that same risk, and even if they can tolerate the Salmonella load or the Campylobacter load, they're pooping it out. And again, 20, 30 cases a year of pet owner food poisoning, picking up their dog's stools, cleaning up, and getting Salmonella or Campylobacter. Way overthought. The industry standards, the industry giants like Purina and Hills, they spend millions and millions of dollars doing vet research and coming up with vet diets. So keep it easy, keep it simple, and make sure there's grains in your dog's food. Yes, sir.
This is a generality, but it seems that dogs really attach themselves to people and cats stay in the house. Is that true?
It's cats. There's no question that a cat's typical personality is self-centered, and yes, but and it's not that they attach themselves to the house; they allow you to live in the house. They love you, Whereas you know that dog is going like just sitting there waiting. You know that dog's just staring at the door 10 minutes before you get home every day. That dog knows it, just sitting there like, oh, he's coming in 10 minutes. He's coming. But it's and we do see dogs bond with humans where we do have to reestablish that bond if something happens. If we have to place the animal, if we lose that owner. But almost all dogs can be rehabbed to new situations most of the time. Cats can be a little bit tougher.
But a cat, I mean, if it's a different person in the house, they're perfect.
So we had a client who lost his wife unexpectedly, and he had an old cat that kept going to her room during her health, they started sleeping in different beds. So this cat was going to her room and yowling all night long, messing up his dogs. He wasn't sleeping, and all it was doing was driving home the point that he was now alone, right? I mean, he had his dogs and his cat, and he came to me to put the cat to sleep. This cat was like 14 years old, and I'm like, yeah, come on in, man, let's just look, because I don't want to just do it, let's make sure it's healthy. And this cat comes in, and he's just cruising the room like he owns it. He's gorgeous, he's good weight, all his labs are normal. And I said, look, man, let's just have, do you care if we just give him to us, all right? And you know I'm gonna put him to sleep if we don't like something, but can we have him? And he's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, just give him to us. He gives us the cat, who was incredibly bonded to the wife, incredibly bonded, and was in that house and couldn't get around that she wasn't there. As soon as we got the cat out of the house into our clinic, he was 100% normal, got adopted out by Amelie, I think, one of our staff members took this cat into a college dorm style lifestyle. And the cat lasted like 2 years, I think, and then got cancer and we had to put it to sleep. But cats can be rehomed from people also. And they can be in new environments also. And sometimes getting them out of the environment they're in, most cats that are peeing out of the box are in multiple cat households. They need to be the only cat in the house. You know, that's a fixable issue if we can get the person to give us a cat besides putting it to sleep. Yes?
We have a mini Bernedoodle, 8 by 10s if you. Sorry about that. Speak to how much it costs per year to take care of a dog.
Well, it really depends on the dog. Luckily, the doodles, which is a mutt on purpose situation, lab doodle, golden doodles, Bernie doodles, all these doodles so mudding dogs is supposed to dilute out their genetics, and we're supposed to see less of you. Go to the go to McLean County Animal Control is one of the best animal control facilities in the country, by the way. And that's because we developed this model where we had a person who was terminal set up an estate to pay for their vet care, and now they don't euthanize anything except sick or vicious animals. And it's a model we're trying to get pushed out nationally to get county animal control facilities to be the hub of all animal rescue, and then all the area rescues go pull animals out of there because all their vet care has been covered. These guys are pretty low package ready to go. Going back to the doodle issue, doodles have way too many allergies. They have ear allergies, face allergies, paw allergies, higher level than almost anything else we're seeing out there besides bulldogs and Frenchies maybe. It's really weird because they're mutts on purpose and they have tremendous allergy problems. The cost really depends. I mean, we have the dogs who come in once a year and they're gonna spend $100 or $150 a year on their, well, maybe 200 on their preventatives and on their annual vaccines and everything. And then we have the allergy dogs that we're gonna battle to keep out of there 5 times a year, you know, animals with GI issues. So it really does depend. And we're always willing to weigh in, honestly. If somebody comes to us and says, think about getting a dog, we wanna get this dog, we'll be like, that's fine, but know that you might have this, or that's a great choice for you and your household and your lifestyle. Absolutely. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Retirement homes and their willingness to accept pets here locally.
I'd like to see it. There's if the lawyers would all go away, it'd be easy because we would have a liability. Their issue is, of course, in that situation, they're more or less functioning as the steward of the animal for that person's pet. So if that dog happens to nip somebody or do something, but the compromise is getting animals to go into those places so people can have some companionship. But if they're in an assisted living situation where they're capable, they just want, you know, they want the company, they want to not have a place to manage. I think that'd be a great place for pets. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Comfort animals. My sister-in-law has 2 dogs, and the Denver airport hires her to come out and just roam the halls with the dogs. She goes into children's wards with the dogs, and I mean, one of the heart-wrenching ones at TV has this other little girl that's sick, and the dog comes in and she just brightens up.
Yeah.
Do we have much of that going on around here?
We don't. And it's funny that you bring that up because pets disarm. And they disarm children who can't have normal lives because of their illnesses, or children who have panic disorders or anxiety disorders. Autism's a little bit different because sometimes kids are really kind of go south around dogs. They can't control it, But I think of the time, my St. Bernard used to go to the baby fold, and I would go in and spend once or twice a year, I'd go into my St. Bernard to the kids who have been pulled away from their parents for abuse. Horrific abuses. I mean, talking if you can dare to say it in your mind, that's what happened to these kids. Their parents don't know where they are, and they're hard to get to if you're human, because their experiences with humans weren't so hot. And you bring a dog in, and they're just like poof, and they're completely disarmed. They're social, they're safe, they hug, and these are kids who you can't touch because of their traumas. But then they get to a dog and they just lay on them, and they get that social comfort, and it's a way to kind of get them to be like, see, that's okay, and then you can try to get that contact that's safe to a person that's safe, to try to get them rehabbed where contact is okay again, which is really critical for some of those younger kids. And I see these kids on my St. Bernard, and I'd go to the people there, and I'd be like, what's that kid doing in here? He seems so smart and so capable. And then they would tell me what would happen when he went south, when he snapped, when he would have one of his attacks, how violent he would become, how literally you could get someone hurt if putting him in a home, a foster home, to try to get him socially rehabbed and emotionally rehabbed. And you're looking at these kids like, are you serious? And but around the dog, they're great. So I wish it's a place where dogs should be used a lot. And I don't know that we're doing that a lot in this area. I don't know that we're doing it a lot in this area.
We do have one client who goes to Stevenson School. I know her dog, Milo, who's a client of ours. And she has weekly visits, and like Milo shows up at the school, and these kids who are quiet or scared are they sit and they read to him and they hold him. I mean, it does happen, but not as much as it should, I agree.
And it's a little bit of a window into what a dog can do for certain people. I mean, imagine there are people who have anxiety disorders or maybe have trouble with relating. But you throw a dog in their lap and all that goes away. Most of the time it goes away. The other thing is with people who are terrible to animals and get caught being terrible to animals, they should be felons. That should not be a misdemeanor offense. If it's bad enough, that should go instantly to felony, because it shows over and over and over that it doesn't stop with pets. It will transfer to kids. It will transfer to somebody in a bar. That level of violence, if you set a cat on fire and throw it in a garbage can for joy and you get caught, you should have to answer to that every time you apply for a job. So I see that you set a cat on fire and throw it in a garbage can, you're gonna have a hard time getting it. I mean, there is a level on the dark side where if you're incapable of humanely taking care of a pet, that should register, because a lot of times that does translate into something bad down the line. Let's not end on that note. That was Alan Sender.
Do you find yourself being miracle counselors at all?
Oh,
Absolutely.
What happens when you have a couple come in? I'm asking
Oh.
for a friend. No. If you have a couple come in who are really sort of at odds about what treatment or.
The two big situations there. The fun one is the new couple with the new puppy. This won't sleep in its crate, barks all night, and gets him trained to come in at 3 in the morning, and the dog doesn't have to go outside. And I'm adamant that if you throw that dog in the bed, that dog will not get up unless it really has to go outside. It will go to sleep. And then you tether that. You're like, well, it's not bad. Dogs can be in the bed overnight, and they won't get up unless they really have to go, versus the crate thing. It's kind of scary for them, and they get used to you getting up, and you're not sleeping. And you can see one spouse. It can be the man, it can be the woman, or any significant other pair you're looking at, cringe, like, this dog's not gonna be in the bed. And they're on like, I told him, this dog should be in the bed. And you're kind of like, okay. But the one that's tough is the euthanasia situation, where we have this gray zone where you can euthanize, but you don't have to. That's usually where we try to make the euthanasia decision, or you walk out the door, it's okay. But we'll have complete disagreement sometimes between family members on when that should happen, and it gets tense. It gets really tense. And if we are okay with the animal not being put to sleep, we usually go to the person who's pushing for it and say, hey, look, in this situation, we tend to hedge, make a mistake, keep them around, because that's when we can always fix that. We can always go back and take care of things, versus putting it to sleep and then having somebody completely emotionally distraught that it was too early. So that's a little bit more where it's an issue. Most of the time, coming through treatment is okay. Every once in a while, we get a domestic disturbance. Those get kind of nasty too. Not that I've ever had any. That's a whole nother talk, you guys. If you ever want to have me back, I'll just tell you about some of my stuff. I'll leave names out of it, and you'll have a great relationship. You'll all feel much better about your relationship, like Yes, sir.
You were talking about dogs and cats. Are there other pets that get into your life?
We do everything. I was the Middleburg Zoo vet for decades. Worked at the Cincy Zoo. We see all the weird animals, snakes, all the guinea pigs, pocket pets, rabbits, birds. When it comes to that, the go-to when we need companionship is still dogs and cats. For children, some of these animals are great to get them established, learn to teach them how to take care of an animal, and then step it up to dogs and cats. Like guinea pigs and rabbits are great for children. But when it comes to, man, we really need to fill a void here. Those pets are interesting. Most people get them because they're interesting, but they aren't. And people bond like crazy to them. I mean, rats are, I know it sounds crazy, rats make great pets. Out of all the rodents, they're by far the greatest pet we see. But you're talking a year and a half, 2 years, that, yeah, I love my pet, and it gets cancer in 1.5, 2 years. You know, that's it. And the rat people are into that. But in terms of trying to get children emotionally bonded or filling gaps, we kind of stick with the dogs and cats. But yeah, we've treated everything. Holy smokes, everything. Yes?
The TV program, Dr. Pol, what does the professional veterinarian feel about such a program?
Nothing good. Nothing good. Dr. Pol, the reality TV show with that's a Nat Geo program, I think. I think that's a Nat Geo channel or Discovery Channel or one of those channels that used to actually provide science in an interesting way. And now it's like people jumping on crocodiles and gators or he's actually gotten in trouble several times for the stuff that he's putting out on his show because it's just way out. It's just not a standard of practice. It's acceptable anymore. And when we're in there, like, if you have a dog spayed at our clinic, we're not gonna, there's certain things you don't have a say in. You're not gonna tell me if that dog's gonna get IV fluids or not. That dog's gonna get an IV fluid no matter what, or you're going somewhere else. We're doing this medicine beforehand, we're doing this medicine afterwards, because that is a great way to keep this dog comfortable pre, peri, and post-operative. And that's not negotiable. Now, that's what happens if you spay a dog at my clinic. And you can shortcut that, you can save money, you can do all sorts of things, but man, it's not a good idea for the animal, and it's not providing good care. And that program kind of made vet medicine cute at the expense of a lot of animals. And yeah, I kind of have a general thumbs down on that. I think that's shared widely by most of the veterinary community. And keep in mind, farm medicine is completely a different situation. This is companion animal medicine, and they need to be approached very differently. Not so much in providing humane approaches, but certainly, I mean, there's a big difference there. Yes?
So you do farm animals, and if I'm raising chickens at home, do you come over and help me?
We do chickens. Chickens are pretty easy because they can bring them to us. I used to do horses and cattle and swine. I'm the vet. I'm the head vet for Illinois State and for Westland, but another veterinarian does the hands-on for the cattle, swine, and sheep because I'm a little bit out of practice there. So they'll make the decisions. I have to just say, yeah, that's totally fine. That's no problem. It's a lot of work. To go work on a horse is an hour and a half at the clinic where I'll probably blow through 8 or 9 dogs or cats that need to be seen. I don't care about the income. I'm just talking about these animals need to be seen, and it's busy. And so it's a big deal to get out in the field. We do have some pretty capable large animal vets in the area though. And we do chickens. Yeah. And ducks.
It's too bad you don't have any enthusiasm for your work.
No, I love it. No, I love it. Thank you.
Well, Matt, can you stay around if there's any other questions later?
Absolutely, yeah, sure.
All right,
Thank you so much for